I'm actually applying for, this is an excerpt of a book I'm writing that's for Stanford. It's actually a fellowship because they don't offer an MFA program. So it's an excerpt of a book I'm writing about the relationships between 3 generations of women with roots in Thailand, and it's told, this is the opening scene from the perspective of the granddaughter Vivian in Chicago. Vivian woke sharply from dreams about the language of a foreign country and people she used to love, and her eyes opened to the smooth, white ceiling above her. Not far away from where she was, the sun was rising on the horizon of Lake Michigan, and from the winding parallel sidewalk, it looked like a great and expansive ocean. It was warm in the apartment, though the frost pressing against the glass of her bedroom window reminded her it was still winter in Chicago. She could hear her husband Lincoln rummaging around the kitchen and listen to the sounds of him arranging something on the stove. "Good morning," she said, walking towards the kitchen island, pulling the bar stool away from the counter to sit. "I didn't hear you get out of bed." He looked over his shoulder as he stood at the sink, their cocker spaniel Charlie asleep at his feet. "I wanted to be quiet so you could sleep in," he told her, smiling, turning to set a plate of food on the island before going back to the stove. "Very sweet of you, though unnecessary," she said, and reached for a small piece of scrambled egg off of his plate. Lincoln gently pushed a full steaming cup of coffee toward Vivian across the counter. She held it between her 2 hands and glanced over the cup and at the newspaper, letting the coffee cool down. After a moment of reading the headline, she realized the kitchen was quiet except for strains of music playing from the next room on the record player. "You're hovering," she said, her eyes still on the paper. "Did you sleep well?" He walked around the kitchen island to sit beside her, pulling the stool close so they were touching knees. "Lincoln," he laughed, "I won't hover forever." Vivian sipped from her mug, her eyes looking at him over the edge, through the steam. "Once you're no longer pregnant, I'll divert the hovering to the baby," he laughed, leaning over to give her a kiss on her cheek. The morning light and the smell of coffee drifted into her peripheral senses. She had married a man who optimized Sunday mornings and love, and it was one of the reasons she had always offered honesty in place of what could be easy. "I worry," Vivian said aloud to herself, as much as to him. "There's so much I want to do and so many things I want to avoid." He leaned back on the stool, his forearm resting on the counter, and he looked at her with a more serious focus. "I know." She could smell him from where she sat, like olive oil and toast from making breakfast. Lincoln pulled his plate towards Vivian, wordlessly offering his breakfast to her, knowing that she would eventually eat some anyway. She shook her head, pushing up the sleeves of her flannel top. She pressed the tips of her toes to the floor, one hand beneath her chin, and looked at him with the ease of love and intimacy. They had eloped 3 summers ago in the city. It had only been an officiant and her closest friend Elena, and the 4 of them standing beside the river while kayakers floated past them, cheering congratulations at Vivian's white dress and Lincoln's navy suit. There was something about Chicago in the summer that was magical, with all of its movement and its sun, the water lapping against the concrete, guiding the river below the Columbus Street Bridge. She said yes to an eternal summer and hope, while joggers on the trail and cars on the bridge were just background noise. That is what Lincoln was to her, summer and fresh air and magic. "You're going to be a great mother, Vivi," he said, brushing his thumbs against her cheekbones. "What makes you so sure?" She didn't mean to, but she could feel her eyebrows reach closer together out of habit. "Look at how much practice you've had with me." She burst out laughing, the vibration of it running through her senses that were still waking up. She rubbed her fingers against the edge of the kitchen island countertop, feeling the smoothness of the marble. "You know, having a husband means not doing everything alone," Lincoln said. She smiled, leaning forward to brush her lips against his right as the phone rang from the bedroom. "Hang on," she told him, the ringtone continuing as she stepped into the room, glancing at the caller ID on the phone. Seeing who it was, she answered the phone with a tone more formal than usual. "Good morning, Mother," she said. "Vivi, what are you doing?" Checking the clock beside her bed, she wondered why her mother would dial her at 9 a.m. on a Sunday. "Having breakfast with Lincoln. Everything okay?" Vivian asked. The pause was nearly imperceptible, but she registered it as her mother answered. I woke up early this morning. I wanted to see what you were doing." "Well," Vivian said, with a slight impatience that had become a worn habit throughout the years. "As it's still early, I haven't done much but get myself out of bed." "Are you busy later? Let's go for dinner somewhere." Her mother was either used to it or ignored Vivian's tone completely. She never knew. With a brief pause of her own, she said, "I have plans in the afternoon, but I would be free around 4 or so." She didn't mention the appointment for the sake of keeping it to herself and not giving indication of something different in her routine. She didn't want her mother asking questions. "That's great, let's do the Italian spot downtown. The one we went to for Lincoln's birthday last year," her mother told her. "I remember, 5 o'clock? 5 o'clock. See you soon, Vivi," and with that her mother hung up the phone. She could hear something tilted in her mother's voice, but she brushed the worry off and would just ask her later. She walked back into the kitchen to find Lincoln feeding Charlie. He looked up. "Speak of the devil." "What did she want?" he asked. "She wants to have dinner tonight. We didn't have plans or anything, did we?" Vivian began picking at the skin on her thumb. "We didn't." He looked at her. "What's on your mind?" She shrugged. "I suppose I can tell her at dinner tonight, assuming all goes well at the appointment later." "Okay, is that what you want to do?" He picked up the cleanly licked plate from the floor near Charlie and set it into the sink. "Yeah, I think so. It'll be fine." Still, she felt the need to do something with her hands. Lincoln could see the restlessness build and put his own hands in his front pockets. "I'm going to go check on something," she said, crossing her arms and feeling the texture of everything within reach, her shirt and the hardwood floors beneath her bare feet. She could feel the texture of her life. "All right, I'll just be here with Charlie," he called behind her. She walked back into the bedroom. She pulled the covers on the bed, blue like the ocean, to the uppermost point of the mattress. Vivian felt the calming aspect of doing something innocuous and exhaled. She would tell her mother that she was going to have a baby, and no matter what her mother said, Vivian would be happy. She had to be. She had worked so hard to create a life for herself that was good and safe. She could hear Charlie's paws on the wood floor, likely following her husband into the next room. From the bedroom, she could hear him changing records on the player, and she smiled lightly at his choice of a love ballad by Foreigner. From the window, she could see the bare branches of trees swaying in the cold, their movement in the path of the frosty and distant view of downtown like a silent film. She cupped her palm to the small part of her round belly. The love she felt for her future was the loudest sound of all. Thank you.